This is Blue July, and you're listening to the Be Someone podcast. Lights looking bright, the H got the vibe. See my name on the signs, it's my time to shine. When I was cruising 45, and it crossed my mind that I shine like the sun and that I'll be someone.
Hey, welcome everyone to the Be Someone podcast. This is your host, Coach Chris Ortiz, and today we're joined by Dr. Curtis Null. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Appreciate you having me.
Hey, you're dressed to the nines, man. Like, super impressed with the outfit.
It's a school day, man. You know, just a great day of school, and had an opportunity to be around the community tonight, and enjoyed the chance to get over here and visit with you.
Well, we appreciate you making some time to come and talk with us. I know right now that you're plenty busy. You're visiting different schools. You're talking to various people about the bond that's about to come up. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for carving out, just a second of your time to come and chat with us at the Be Someone podcast.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, man. Always, you do great work in so many areas, so a chance to sit down with you is a blessing.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Null.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start off with your background. Like, you come from a family of educators.
I do.
Right? Were you destined, to jump into education with your mom and your dad being in education?
It's interesting, I would say probably yes, destined to do it. Both my parents were educators. My dad was a school administrator. Was actually my junior high principal. I grew up in Northeast Houston, C.E. King High School, Sheldon ISD. That's where I grew up, and my mom was also a teacher. People would ask me my whole life, "You gonna be a principal like your dad? You gonna do it?" And I say, the answer is always no, never. Went to school, picked my university based on the major that I wanted to follow, which was pharmacy.
Oh.
So I went to the University of Houston as a pharmacy major. That's what I was going to do. I do think that I was destined to be an educator, but I fought it for a pretty good while. And finally, my sophomore year of college, I said, man, this is, I went and worked in a pharmacy, did some things. I was like, this is not for me. I think I got to find something different. It's actually my dad who talked to me and said, you like medicine, you like science, you like these things, but you like kids and schools. Well, have you ever thought about being an athletic trainer? And, for those on, maybe watching that aren't familiar, athletic trainers, that's the guys and ladies that take care of athletes when they get hurt, right? You watch a football game, somebody gets hurt, those folks that run out there to take care of them, that's the athletic trainers. And so that's what Dad said, well, maybe you should just do that and be a high school athletic trainer. And that's, I made that shift, and that was that kind of first nod in the direction of education.
Was it the people aspect that you were missing?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's action too, right? We know educators, you hadn't had the same day twice yet. Like, it does not happen, right? And so working in the pharmacy, great profession, but it felt very routine to me. And I wanted some more action. I wanted some more variety, and that's what education is. Like, every day it's an adventure. We know it's an adventure, and I think we're blessed as educators that we get to change the world with our jobs
every day, right?
Yeah, and I had a lot of great friends that went into other professions or doing other things, and they do great work in their field, but they don't feel fulfilled in their heart. And so they're seeking out opportunities to, get on a board or get involved with some organization because they're still seeking fulfillment in life. Like you and I, we get to have it with our job. Like it is built in to what we do, which is awesome.
Yeah, it can be, extremely difficult in some capacities.
Absolutely.
But on the other hand, it could be the best gift, that I've received. Day after day after day after day, you do get to make a difference in somebody's life throughout the course, of the school year multiple times.
Well, you hear that old saying, right? Like teaching is great because it matters, but it's really hard because it matters every day. Like there's no day off. Like you don't know on any given day which one of your 100 and something kids needs you to be special on that day. You don't know which period, what, you never know like what is walking in the door and the impact that you can make and the life that you can change on any day, any moment. Like that's like what a gift that is. Makes you tired when you get home at night. You're worn out, but it makes a difference. And yeah, so for me, I fought education. I didn't think that that's the path I wanted to go, but like all the most special people in my life are educators, mom, dad, teachers, and I use the word teachers to me inclusively. I think as educators, we're teachers. I'm a teacher still. That's the way I think of what I do. My wife is a teacher. So all these people in my life are teachers, and I love teachers. It's just, I think it's a noble calling that attracts very special people, and we get this chance to do this. And I never saw myself taking this administrative route. That was it's a whole, we could get into that if you want. That's a whole different journey that I never thought I would do. I thought I would be teaching in a classroom my whole life, and I was good with that. Like that's once I got on that path, like I was very comfortable with that being the idea. But once again, life sometimes has different ideas.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed back in, I think it was 2018, whenever you were given the position, it said that you were like an advocate for an educator. You're an advocate for the children, advocate for the parents.
Yeah.
What does that mean when you say the word advocate? What was it, that you meant by that?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to champion people, right? Like being a parent's hard.
Oh,
like raising a family is hard. It's hard to do. What makes it possible is when you have great people around you to help you. And as a school system, we play a key role in that. It's not our job to replace parents. We don't want to. I mean, we need parents to parent their children, but we also know that we can serve this big role of supporting them in that and helping these children be great. And so, that's what being an advocate's about, right? It's just that I'll be a voice for those that may not have a voice. And I take that role really seriously, because some children, my children, your children, if things go wrong, they're going to have a voice because I'll be there as a parent, but not all kids have that. And so I take that responsibility very seriously to speak for those that can't speak for themselves, make sure that we're doing those things. And the same thing for teachers, right? It's my job to advocate for teachers and that they're respected and taken care of. I mean, we're in a situation right now where our teachers haven't been given a raise that they deserve because the money is sitting in Austin and the legislators have not yet allocated it. I was on the phone earlier today with the legislator pleading and making my case for this is got to be handled. Like we need to take care of our teachers, and that's, to me, that's part of advocacy too. So there's different ways, right? You're some of it's out front, it's very public, some of it's behind the scenes, it's the work that you do, but it's really just being a champion for those that you serve, and that's the way I view my job, right? I view that leadership pyramid, like I'm on the bottom of this thing, right? I get to serve all these people above me, and that's for us in Conroe ISD. That's 73,000 kids. That's 10,000 employees. That's all the lives that are associated with that, and that's never lost on me. Is to understand that every decision that we make, or ultimately if I have to make a final decision on something, is I'm impacting 73,000 kid lives, and then all the lives that are associated with them, and then 10,000 employee lives and all the lives that are associated with them. Like that's a big responsibility, but also a big opportunity. And like if you want to take that as a positive, right? I want to view that as like I have a chance to make all those lives better every day.
Yeah, I'm a big Tony Dungy man.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he likes to champion is being a servant leader.
Yes.
Where do you get this servant leadership mentality from? Because that's what I'm getting from you.
Yeah. When you take the graduate courses in education, there's always like the project or this question that gets asked, right, about what was your most impactful day in your life as an educator? Mine, I always have an answer for that. It's pretty simple. When my dad was retiring from being an administrator at Sheldon ISD, there was a retirement party for him, and it was held in the cafeteria at the junior high where I went to junior high, C. King Junior High, right? It was held in that cafeteria, and all these people showed up, And I was a third-year teacher at the time, had applied for a couple of assistant principal jobs, was going through the process of trying to become an administrator. He was retiring as an administrator. We're at that party, and they opened it up at one point to say, like, does anybody want to share any words? And this line of people lined up, right? So the first person gets up there and they speak, and they were the cafeteria manager for a number of years. And then the next person gets up there and speak, and this person was like, teacher of the year, one of the best teachers, whatever, they speak. Then a 40-something-year-old man gets up there and says, like, well, he was my junior high principal. And they talk about the impact. And then one of the custodians comes up and they talk. And it was like that moment, right, where you just look at it and you're like, it made no difference what your title was, what your status was, none of those things made any difference. Every single person that my dad worked with was loved, respected, made to feel important, and you see that night. And like, so for me, it's like that night of like, that's what being a leader is.
Yeah.
That's it. And there's so much for me that I grew up, basically, I'm an only child. I grew up in the junior high. I grew up in C.E. King Junior High. Like, my dad was a junior high principal from when I was an elementary kid all the way through my junior high years.
Running the halls,
man, working the concession stand at every game, walked over from my elementary to that school every day after school. And just being around him, like, I learned so much every day that I had no idea I was learning.
That's the best kind of learning too, isn't it?
No, yeah. There were things that when I did become an administrator, there were things that I would do, and somebody was like, well, why'd you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like what we should do. And as I began to recognize that more, I recognized it more as like, I just grew up learning this stuff every day. Like, I had a great teacher right there. And like, when he was, interacting with somebody or dealing with somebody, I wasn't paying attention as a kid, but it was soaking in and I didn't know it. And so to me, that's where that servanthood comes from. But I think it also goes back a little bit to my background as an athletic trainer. Because, you think about the role of an athletic trainer. The role of an athletic trainer is to be behind the scenes. It's to make sure that everybody else performs at their very best, right? If you're a great trainer, that means the athletes are performing at their very best and they're getting all the glory.
Yeah.
And they're being successful. Well, that inherently, like, that's who I am. That's my mentality. So it's not about me, it's about everyone else. If I'm doing my job great, I should sort of just disappear, and you and all these other great educators should be the ones shining every day. Like, that's the true measure of my success. And so I think both of those things sort of play in to that a little bit.
All right. You mentioned your father, and I got an opportunity to work with your father.
Yeah.
Always wore a smile. I don't think he ever told me no.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, do you ever go to your father, for advice, even today, like, Dad, today this happened at work. I need some advice.
It's pretty rare, truthfully. It's a different world. He was never a superintendent. So he was a principal, and then he moved into central office roles. And Sheldon, where I grew up, was much smaller than where we are here, So occasionally he and I may talk about school. It's interesting for me is I spend so much time at work that even when my kids are growing up, that I'm pretty intentional about when I leave work, I leave work. I don't talk about it a whole lot at home, be it with my dad or either my parents or even with my wife, truthfully. Like, I get home, I try to at least be a good enough husband to ask her every day, like, how was pre-K today? I want to know, how was your day? How was pre-K? She's going to tell me. And then that's probably going to be the last time we talk about work. Or what we just call school. Right? I go to school every day still. We're not going to talk about school anymore. It's just I think it's just kind of that separation where I just try to be down. So there are occasions that we'll talk about things, but not too often.
What
We're
about
just
life
trying to-
advice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had the greatest parents, right? I mean, I was just blessed to have great parents that gave me space as a kid. Like I said, only child. I always have known that they were there, and then still to this day. Like they live close to us. I grew up Northeast Houston, but when we moved up here, I'm an only child. They didn't move up here to get close to me, but they moved up here to get close to my kids, right?
Yes.
So they're grandkids. So they've always been right here, and they've always been the greatest example for me, for our kids, right? They're just the greatest of examples, and there is something about knowing that you have a safety net in life, right? And I don't take that for granted. And I also try to be empathetic to our kids that we deal with that I know don't have that feeling. Like when I see kids maybe behave or do things in a way that I think like, why are they doing this? I also have to remind myself, like, I had this advantage in life of having these great parents that I
Yes.
knew were a safety net. Like I knew if I fell, I was only going to fall so far because they would always be there to catch me. Now, luckily, we never really got in a situation where we had to test that theory too much.
Right.
But I knew that. But I see so many kids in this world that like they have no safety net. Like one mistake can be it for them. Like there is no room for error, and so you try to figure out how do you get a safety net like that for kids that don't have it.
I would say that'd be us. The school
Absolutely.
system.
It's the school, right? And sometimes it's the very special teacher that locks onto a kid and makes that difference. Sometimes it's a mentor that we bring in from the community, right? Sometimes it's a coach that really bonds with the kid, right? Yeah, that's what we do, right? If all we did was show up every day and just teach like reading, math, and science, like
Wouldn't work.
it would never work, right? These kids you have to prepare them to learn on any given day, right? Some are hungry, some need to be loved, some just need to be seen and heard, right? To feel like they matter, to do all those things. If you meet all those needs, right, then we can probably teach them some math.
Yep.
But if you don't address those other things, you probably won't ever get to teach them math. And that's where that's where really like gifted teachers change the world, because they just have this innate sense of what does every individual child need, and you see it, like you are one, and you see them when you go into these classrooms, and you can just see these teachers that can just look at a kid and know on any given day like what they need.
Yeah.
Some days they need to be pushed, some days they need to be hugged, some days they need space.
Yeah.
Sometimes they need to talk, but like these gifted teachers they just know it.
It's fluid, right?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Like I love it. Like it's just, to me, it's amazing. Like I'm in awe of teachers when I can walk in and just see what they do. I'm in awe. Yeah.
When you walk into a school, like what do you like to see? What warms your heart? What lets you know that
Man.
us at Conroe ISD are doing what's right, for kids?
The biggest thing for me when you walk in, you can feel a school when you walk in.
I like a warm feeling.
Right? Like you feel it. You can feel a place that is welcoming and where everybody is comfortable, or you can feel a place that's a little uptight and everybody's on edge. You can feel it just walking in the building. So I want to walk into a place where you can feel it, that it's comfortable, and that people are comfortable with each other and interacting. And it looks different on different levels, right? You go to elementary school. I mean, I want to see joy. I want to see and hear joy. I want to see kids, you want to see them light up when they're learning and excited about learning, excited about being there, excited to talk to their teachers and talk to their friends. When I go to more like junior high and high school, like I love to be at a place where kids are comfortable, and it because like they'll walk up to you, like the kid will just walk up to me and, hey, shake my hand and say, some will know who I am, some don't. They'll say, hey, who are you? Showed up in a suit. Who is this guy, right? But they're comfortable, right? Like they feel good about themselves, and you can have a great conversation with them. Like that makes you feel good, and you just want to know that every kid has a place, right? And um, you know, I love to see schools that have like back to like those safety nets built, right? Like,
Yeah.
does every kid have a place? Like that's so important. We all want to belong, right? And but we belong in different areas. Some
Yeah.
kids are great musicians, and some kids are great athletes, and some kids are great actors and actresses, and some are gifted writers, and some are, you know, uh, gifted in things that may not show up at school, but they're gifted nonetheless. But how do we tie them into things at school where they can feel comfortable at school and get through that process, and know that like it, they matter every day, right? Like that's the biggest thing. Like, you know, and I think it's what we all want for our own children, right? Like we just want our own children to be happy and know they're loved and know that they're safe. And that's and you know, primarily that's what I want when I walk into the school. Like the kids know they're loved and they're safe. And I just believe that if you can create an environment like that in a building and you've hired the very best teachers, which we do. We're fortunate that we do that. I know we do that. When they know they're loved and they're safe, and you're putting a great teacher in the classroom with them every day, and results will happen. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't walk into a building sweating test scores or any. I don't. That's not my concern. You know, because I just know if we're doing all the things that we're supposed to do to take care of kids, test results will happen. That's fine. But you know, nobody is holding their newborn baby and looking at that baby and say, "Man, I hope that you're going to pass the STAR test in 8th grade." Like that's not a
No.
parent's concern, right? They want them to be great human beings that are prepared to be wonderful adults and one day great parents themselves. And like that's the role. Like I want us playing that role.
And
We need them to learn, and they will.
and you know, us both being parents and
Yeah.
having kids and living,
Yep.
you know, that dream, right?
Right.
Uh, having kids is not easy, you know, and
No.
even the ones that look like they have everything
Mhm.
just rolling for them and everything looks good, you know, they've got their own battles, they got their own struggles, and I know me as a parent, I just want my kid loved, like you said. I
Yeah.
want them respected. I want them pushed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I concur with 100% of what you say. What, you know, is the value of like when we put these good schools together in Conroe ISD? Like, what value does it bring to the community?
Oh, it's huge. You know, you think about this place, like we're growing so rapidly,
Ooh,
right? People want to live in this community, and um, Montgomery County is a nice place to live. It's pretty. We have trees. It's it's a nice place. People want to live here, and then they specifically look for Conroe ISD, and we get these accolades, and they're great. You know, it's nice to be named on the Forbes list for the best employer, or named the best school district in Montgomery County by niche. Like those are all really nice things, right? But in the end, what you're really about is you want to be a community where when somebody is wanting to buy a house, that they go, I want my kids to live, or I want my kids to go to school in that school district. Or, if I'm a grandparent here and I'm living here, I want to make sure that even though I may not have kids in the school district, that I want to live in a place that's a great place. So maybe one day I can convince my kids to move my grandchildren up here closer to me, right? Like there could be different conversations. So we know the role we play. And I was speaking earlier today at the Woodlands Township, and one of the things I shared with them is, the Woodlands is in Conroe ISD. Sometimes there's confusion about that. People don't really know that that's the case, but it is. And the Woodlands was named the best place to live in America. It's
again,
been named that multiple times now, right? But the original article that named the Woodlands the best place to live in America, the original article, the opening sentence of that article said, "The Woodlands, Texas has great public schools." Like that's pressure for you and I. That's pressure, right? Like for us to live up to that.
yeah.
We have to live up to that every day, because like that whole community is counting on us to keep that standard so that they can keep their standard of being named this best community. So, and they have now won it multiple years. And once again, they received the very highest marks for their public schools. And so that's a pressure for us, but that's an impact that we have on directly on the community. You look at property values and all the things like, any of us that are fortunate enough to be homeowners, you buy a house, certainly you hope that it's a good investment.
It's a great investment.
And you want the values to go up. Now, we don't like our taxes to go up, but we want our values to go up because one day we're going to sell that house, and we want to sell it for more than we bought it for. And the quality of the schools plays a huge role in that. So for folks that they may not even have children in our schools, but we impact their lives, we impact their finances significantly. So that's important for us to appreciate that as well, that it's not just about the kids that are in our schools, if it's really about the whole community.
Oh yeah, and I could speak, as a homeowner here. I live in the community here in Grogan's Mill, and yeah, our home values have, shot through the roof, and our school district, being as good as it is, plays a huge role in that.
Right.
And a lot of people don't have to come over here and look for private education. They can get a very quality education here in Conroe ISD.
Yeah, it saves people a lot of money. Folks that have been in different places and different parts of the country that felt like they had to go to private schools, and then they move here and they come to our schools and they go, wow, like this is, I'm getting a better education and I'm not paying this private school tuition, and we're proud to offer that, right? I think we offer so many opportunities for kids, and I think public schools in general do that, right? And there's no knock on private schools. I think they serve a great purpose, and we have great private schools in our area, and we have really good relationships with them, but they would also be the first ones to tell you, like, for them to be successful, they need us to be successful, and so I just think public schools in general. I'll speak universally for all those around us, like. There are great things happening in public schools, and public schools are where we change the world, because we educate every child.
Yeah,
we don't pick who we educate. We are going to take every child and try to make a difference in their life and help them overcome whatever they need to overcome. And I think that's truly what our whole country's built on, right?
Like, I think it's important to also, let people know that sometimes it may not, come about in the test score, right? I can speak as someone who was I was a habitual C student for a number of different reasons, right? But when I did finally, that switch flipped, like all that stuff that I had taken in the past, it was all there and it was ready for me to access.
Yeah, and that's why I talk about, like, I don't worry that much about test scores, because some kids are just inherently going to blow the top off of a test. And some inherently are going to struggle, and it may be zero indication of their true academic ability. It may have test anxiety or just a lack of interest because it's not what they love. You have a kid that can grow up to be all kinds of things, and maybe not a great student in high school along the way, but then they go off to be, famous car designers or musicians or athletes or whatever it may be, that they go off and they find their niche in the future. So, yeah, I think it's back to that big picture, right? Like, we have to look at this big picture. And I don't, just like I would say, like, you can't judge a school based on how their kids performed on a single test on a single day.
Yeah.
Like, what a narrow way to judge a school. And I know we have state systems that do that, but I just think it's a narrow way to judge a school. Shouldn't judge kids that narrowly either, right? Like, just to say, just based on this performance on whatever test or whatever, like, that's your future. No, man, your future can be so big.
Yeah.
We should never limit kids or try to put them in a box based on, whatever. I mean, you're a C student, you're never going to be this or that in life. No, you can be anything you want to be in life. Like,
yes, you can.
You're just getting started. Like, this is the beginning, and where are you going to go from here? And I think we have to continue to speak that belief into kids, because, we talked about parenthood's hard. Being a kid's hard. And right now it's, like, I think the hardest time ever with social media and what they see, this pressure of perfection across, all these social media platforms where everything is, this illusion of perfection. It's not real. It's an illusion, right?
Correct.
That all these people have perfect lives, and they do perfectly in school, and they do this and that, and they look perfect. Like, what an awful standard to have to live up to as a teenager
and impossible.
Or a child. It's impossible. It's not real, and you're trying to live up to something that's not real, and then it creates this angst and anxiety and all the things. And then, as a parent, you're trying to deal with that as well, and the limited access to social media and all the things. So it's a hard time to be a kid. I think we have to recognize that. Like, they just deal with challenges that we did not deal with when we were growing up, right? Like, I could say very clearly that I think probably most adults in this world, if we're being honest with each other, would say, like, I'm really glad there weren't cell phone cameras around when I was 16 doing something like a knucklehead that I probably shouldn't have done. But there was no camera there. But today there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
And sometimes kids make mistakes, and unfortunately for them, they live on in perpetuity because somebody happened to record it. And boy, that's scary to think that one mistake from a young person could really carry so much weight. So it's just a hard time to be a kid.
Yeah, just in general, it's a hard
It
time to
is.
be a
Yeah,
parent, a
absolutely.
kid, an
Yeah.
educator. Like,
Yeah.
the world is changing right
It's
now.
a different
We're in a
world, man.
transition.
Yeah, I think for a long time we'd say, like, COVID. COVID. I don't know if it's still COVID. I don't know if that's still our answer as to why, but
It seems like it
things
might have accelerated some things, like some
maybe.
things that
Yeah,
were
I think.
on the horizon.
Yeah, you may be right. Like, maybe we just had multiple years worth of change happen in a year or two, and it's just we haven't caught up yet with that. Maybe that's the case.
Yeah, I absolutely love your view and the holistic approach that you take
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about little human beings,
Yeah.
our students. Uh, what literature, what books, what mentors are you getting this outlook from?
I'm a big believer in positive thought, right? And I think I've read a lot of John Gordon.
Yes,
I'm
Energy
I'm,
Bus.
I'm, I'm a big John Gordon fan. Probably my favorite, probably my most impactful book. And those aren't hard reads, right? They're
No,
pretty.
they're quick.
They're
That's why I
pretty
like
easy
them.
reads, right? They're pretty easy
Coaches
reads.
reads.
Um, you know, he has a book called Power of Positive Leaders. And that's probably one that speaks to me more than any other leadership book I've read, truthfully. And it's just that idea of you can be positive, but you can still have high expectations, and you can still hold people accountable, and be positive. Like, being positive doesn't mean that you're not attached to reality, right?
Yeah.
You can still see reality. And, one of the things that he talks about in there, which I try to live and try to do my best, is, to be a great leader, it takes two things. First is love. People have to know you love them, and and you have to love people. But the second piece you can't forget either, and that's accountability.
Yes.
And it takes both, right? If you have love and no accountability, you're not going to get anything done. And if you have accountability and no love, people are not going to feel valued, and you might be able to force some results out of them, but not for long. You're going to lose the people. You have to have love and accountability together. And that really spoke to me. I think, when I read that book, there were a lot of affirmations for me of things that maybe I had always thought but didn't know how to verbalize, hadn't seen it written down. And when I read that book, I went, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, here it is. Here it is written down. So that's one that I probably still quote more than any other leadership book I've ever read.
Yeah, John's got some hits.
Yeah, I mean, he just pumps them out.
He's still
right?
pumping them
Yeah,
out.
one after another, and you see themes, right? Like repeat themes. But that one is one. Like, if you haven't read that yet, I'd say Power of Positive Leadership is one for any aspiring leader. I just think that it's a big one.
How about mentors?
For all of us, I think it's important that you have people that nobody gets anywhere alone. Period.
Hey, can I quote a great man real quick?
Please.
Joe Dahl. He used to have this quote, I'm like the turtle that got up on the fence post.
Yes.
I didn't do it all by myself.
Exactly.
Joe, love you and we miss you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's real, right? So I started in the school district as a teacher, and there are so many people that invested in me along the way. Like, I could name multiple people in different roles that took the time to try to help me grow and stopped me and said, like, here's why I'm doing this. Here's why I'm doing that, just to help me, and I was a big question asker, still am, but especially kind of working my way in the system. Like, I'd ask so many questions. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? How, the thought, probably the biggest mentor for me was our previous superintendent, Don Stockton.
Oh.
So great man, and it goes back pretty far for me. So I was a second-year teacher working at the Woodlands High School, and we ended up, I was a trainer, right? So we ended up in Austin. There was the state wrestling and state swimming and diving going on.
Same time?
Same time. They went on the same weekend. So I was there and working as a trainer, and he was the principal of the Woodlands High School at the time. And he called me and said, "Hey, I'm coming up, as the principal who's going to come watch." And so he said, "Well, we can just kind of hang out, for the day." I'm a second-year teacher. This guy's principal of the Woodlands High School. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I was so nervous, right? And we hung out pretty much all day. Went from one event to the other, and just really, man, I just really admired him, and he's just first-class individual in everything he does. And we were having dinner that night. There's a break. We went to dinner, and over dinner he said, "Have you ever thought about being an administrator?" I said, "No. I'm not giving it no thought. My dad was an administrator, but that's not my path. I like what I'm doing." And he said, "I really think you should think about it." I was like, "Well, I'll think about it, but I don't think I'm gonna do it." Well, I thought about it, and I decided, went back and started working on my certification, and a year later, he became the superintendent of the school district. Like, there were some things that happened, and boom, he's the superintendent. And I ended up moving to an assistant principal role, and then I left the district for a couple of years, and then I came back as a principal. And so he was the superintendent, I became back as principal. And he's just a guy that from that time, I mean, he spoke a lot of belief into me, made himself available to me for questions. I was a junior high principal for 4 years and moved to become a high school principal. Probably in my time as a high school principal, I bet I talked to him 3 days a week at about 6 o'clock in the morning, because he'd get to the office early, I'd get to the office early, and I'd call probably 3 days a week. And with those same things, like, I'm just asking questions.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? How did you make this decision? And I would intently watch everything that he did just to try to, understand the why. And he always took the time to share that with me, give me all that information. And then, eventually, and I moved over into the admin building, he put me in positions to learn, so that when he did decide to retire, I was in a position to be a good candidate for the job, because he had placed me in spots and given me responsibilities to let me learn along the way. So that, he had a huge impact, not only just in me personally, but also just in me. Like, how will I treat people that aspire to do different things, in the future in the school district? Like, it's that same thing. Like, people have invested in me in a way that I owe it the same thing to invest in other people. So to spend time with people, to answer questions, and to do all those things. Like, we owe that to each other, right?
Was there ever any like a fear or anxiety of having to like follow, such a good leader? Because again, I've been here for almost 20 years, and yeah, Stockton was the man.
He was the man.
He did a
right?
wonderful job.
Absolutely, he was the man. No, not too much. And I think part of it goes back to, like you said, my dad. I know my dad. My dad has a school named after him in Sheldon ISD. He's a little bit of his own legend. So I've sort of felt like that my whole life. Like, I've sort of felt like I was following my dad. And everybody that knows my dad loves my dad. You like you said, you spend time with it. Everybody loves him. So I've always felt that. And so, but it's never bothered me. And so I think it's kind of the same way with Stockton. Like, following him, I never felt like I had to outdo him or try to be him. Like, I decided very early on, like, I just got to be me. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do this my way. I'm going to be me. you know, and it's like I'm not offended when people say like Don Stockton is the greatest ever. It's great. Like I'm fine with that. Like, you know, I've never been one of those like, well, if you love him, you don't love me. Like, no, that doesn't it's not how this is, right? We're all here to serve,
Right.
you know? So he was the best superintendent for his time in Conroe ISD. And that's my job, to try to be the best superintendent for this time in Conroe ISD. Very different times. So I just got to try to be the best version that I can be and serve this community, and knowing that someday I'll move on and somebody else will come and I'll be rooting for them to do it way better than I did it. And because that's what the community deserves.
Yeah, and I think you've done a heck of a job, like just jumping on, right? Like you had a freeze,
Oh man,
you had COVID. Like, what are some
Yeah.
things that we, as people living in the community, like we don't take into account when big old decisions like that are
Yeah.
having to be made?
The amount of people involved in decisions and the amount of stress that people don't understand that, like let's just take something with weather.
Yeah.
Like that, it doesn't seem like it have to be that big a deal, but it really is, so ultimately it's my decision if we close school or we don't close school. Now, I don't try to operate in a vacuum, so when you get in these situations where we may have 10 or 12 people on conference calls at 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I've got police officers that are running streets and telling me what's safe, and operations teams telling me if buildings are operational and if buses can roll, and schools telling me how many teachers are going to be absent. All these things, all this information is coming in because we think school's important. And I think, and for so many of our kids, like the greatest gift they have in any given day is to go to school.
Yeah.
It's the safest building they'll go to. There's full of people that love them. They're going to eat.
They're going to eat.
And they're going to have air conditioning and heat and lights. And none of those things are given maybe at home at times for families. So I view closing school as taking away what could be the greatest thing, the greatest part of a child's day, taking that away from them. So I don't take it lightly, and ultimately in the end, we might vote and hey, everybody give me your opinion, but in the end, I got to be the one to make that final call. And so there's just so many things, for most people, it's like, I just want to wake up and find out if I got the text, right? Like, did we get the text that said we're closed, and then I can go back to sleep? Like, that's what everybody's really, but the amount of
there's a little bit more to that.
Oh, the thought processes and the worry that goes into that. And there's so many things COVID was its whole animal. I won't even get into that, but it was its own animal of all the decisions that we had to make and the impacts. And so none of it's taken lightly. I think that really, if you think like what could the community know, is like not a single decision is made lightly. And I also won't claim that we always get them all right. Like, we're human like everybody else. Sometimes we make one and it goes wrong and we're like, that was not the right call. But
we can learn from our mistakes,
it's part of
right?
being human, right? Absolutely. We learn, and sometimes things are beyond our control.
Yeah.
We had I can think of a weather situation about 4 years ago that, all the meteorologists told us it was going to be fine.
I know what you're talking about.
I talked to the county emergency management team at 4 a.m. They said, you're fine. You're going to be fine. No problem having school. Okay. 5 a.m. I talked to them again. They're like, you're fine. No problem. You can have school. At 6:45, they called me. When our high school started at 7:15.
It started.
Like, buses are rolling, right? At about 6:45, they call me and say, yeah, we don't think you're going to be fine. And I was like, what? Like, we already have buses. Like, teachers are already driving to schools. What are you talking about? We're not going to be fine. Like, you're not going to be fine. So we closed school. We already had kids on buses, and we closed school at that moment. Like, that was so not great. And yet it was the best decision we could make, because everything we had been told before then was, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then all of a sudden we weren't. But that's Mother Nature, right? Like,
she's undefeated.
I don't blame the people that told me. They were using their best information, and it just went sideways. And doesn't make it feel any better. You just know, like, when that's happening, like, man, I'm gonna get destroyed.
It's part of being a leader, though,
Yeah, it
right?
is.
Like,
Like,
you
that's
can't
part
sit on
of
the
it.
fence.
No, and you have to own it, and that's fine. I owned it. It's on me.
Yeah.
But that's just part of it. And but you learn each of those situations. You learn. Now when somebody tells me we're fine, I look at them. I go, "Are you sure? Are you positive that we're fine? Because you can't call me back in an hour and tell me we're not." So we've adjusted some things, but that's real. That stress is real.
Oh man, I bet you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the upcoming bond.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different things that are up for, I guess, discussion. We have a number of new schools.
Yeah.
Upgrading. Current schools, technology, outdoor. Swimming facility. Talk to me.
So all the stuff is there. I'm really proud of this process that we went through with this bond. We've talked about this growth and all these people moving in, and our buildings are over capacity already.
Yes,
And
sir.
we have folks moving in. So we did this bond planning committee. We had 148 community members on this bond planning committee. It was really great, and all different walks of life, all different opinions on things. They came in. They were respectful to each other. They met 11 times for about 2.5 hours, like, each time, and we gave them homework. Like, we put them through the grinder. But because of the process being well done, we had a product that's strong. So November 7th, our voters are going to be able to vote. It's 4 different propositions, so voters will have a choice 4 different times. Proposition A is the big portion. It's, like you said, it's new schools, it's renovations to current schools. Big renovation. Knox Junior High is on there to get a renovation.
You could use it.
Some additions to some schools, new buses, land, safety improvements, what we call infrastructure, which is things like roofs and air conditioning systems for schools. So that's Proposition A. It's really kind of the what I would call the meat and potatoes portion of the bond, right? Proposition B is for technology devices. So laptops, desktop computers, tablets, those type of things. They have to be in their own proposition. That's why they're separate. The state law says they have to be. Proposition C gets a little more interesting as far as it's for ag barns. We have 2 ag barns in the school district, in
Oak Ridge and Caney Creek.
Oak Ridge and the Woodlands.
Oh, the Woodlands.
So Caney Creek and Conroe do not have an ag barn.
Seems like they need one.
So we would add on to the 2 current ag barns and then build a new ag barn in Conroe to serve Caney Creek, Conroe, and what would be a new high school up there. And then also elementary gyms. So we have 16 elementary schools that don't have gyms currently. So they use their cafeteria as a gym. And when we build new elementaries, a gym is included. So 16 of them don't have a gym, and a majority of those 16 are actually in the Woodlands. It's interesting. It's just the generation of building when the Woodlands was built. But every feeder zone, except for Grand Oaks, because all the schools in Grand Oaks are new. They all have gyms.
Yeah.
But every other feeder zone would be getting some elementary gyms as part of Prop C. And then finally, Prop D is a pool. So we have 1 pool in the school district. A lot of school districts have a pool at every high school. We have 1 for the school district that all the kids use. This would build an outdoor pool adjacent to our current natatorium that would be covered to give us more pool space. And we added water polo now as an additional official school sport. So we have 2 sports now that come out of our pool. So that's a big deal for us. Voters, once again, have choice. So voters could choose to say yes to Proposition A and Proposition B and no to C, no to D, or yes to all, or whatever. The impact is about 2 cents on the tax rate. So our average house in Conroe ISD is about $350,000. It comes out to about $50 per year is what this bond would cost if all 4 propositions pass. So voters are gonna have a choice. And we just encourage people to get educated, get out there and vote. It's not a huge election cycle, but we want the community's voice to be heard, and tons of information on our website. Hopefully folks can, get themselves educated on it and go out and make an educated decision at the ballot box for what they want.
I would say, with kids, certainly like our children being our most precious commodity, it only makes sense to me that we should invest in those kids. Like, what is the value in adding more schools? What does that allow for?
Well, you address capacity issues. So right now we're at 104% district wide, but we have some campuses that are at over 150% of their capacity. So they are over full, right? We have some elementary schools. That's an elementary school. It's 150% capacity. We
Holy
have elementary
smokes.
schools that have 20 portable buildings, portable classrooms in the backyard. And so, the new schools, that's primarily what they address, is to relieve overcrowding at those schools. But then at the same time, you have to understand that we as taxpayers, we own, a, a, you know, we have a lot of resources that we own, right? All these schools that we own, these are valuable assets for us as a community. And so you have to reinvest in your assets, just like your house, right? You own a home. There is a point where you have to put on a new roof. There is a point where you have to replace the air conditioning system. There's a point where you need new flooring. That's also included in that Proposition A for some of our older schools, where we know that the air conditioner is due to break and it's time to replace it, because this is Texas, y'all. Like, we can't have school without an air conditioner. Like, that's not an option at this point. I know, folks will say, "Oh, in my day, we didn't even have air conditioners." Okay,
You weren't living in
not
Texas
today, right? Like, we are at a point today where we have to have air conditioners to be safely have school. So, yeah, all the stuff. Once again, Prop A, new schools and renovations, very meat and potatoes. B is technology. C, the gyms and ag barns, and then D is the pool. And we'll see how the voters vote on that.
Here's one too. I'm a real big advocate of play, right? Like, I know that we're serving young people, and young people learn the best whenever they have the ability to get up, move around, and play, and have that outlet. Like, what's the value of adding these gyms to these elementary schools?
A lot of conversation about that. First and foremost, when you don't have a gym in an elementary, it changes the way your school functions, because you can't have what they call in elementary level specials, right? Or like elective classes. You can't have those during the lunch period because you don't have the gym. So it changes the way the school functions. But then the gym also serves a purpose for when it's raining or when it's too hot. I mean, here we are, it's September. Like, our kids have barely been able to go to recess all year because we have rules about, it's too hot, you can't go outside and these things. So, when you have these additional big spaces, it also gives room for indoor activity that you don't have maybe at other places. So, I mean, it plays big, and you want kids to be active. I mean, we talk about, back to our earlier conversation about it's hard to be a kid. You have big struggles and worries about mental health, and exercise can play a role in that, but also physical health. Like, we're trying to be healthier as a society, and
they go hand in hand, right?
Moving plays a big role in that. So that's it's interesting. I think a lot of folks, you only know your elementary, you don't know other elementaries. When you're in junior high and high school, you might have a kid that plays a sport, and so you go to another school.
Yeah.
And so you see the other schools, and you go, "Oh, they have this, and we don't have this," whatever. Elementary, you just kind of go to your own kid's elementary. You never go to any other elementary. So it's interesting, as I've been out speaking to people. Folks that have gyms go, "What do you mean
You don't
other
have a
schools
gym?"
don't have gyms?" And the folks that don't have gyms are like, we can't even fathom what life would be like with a gym. Like how do they use it? And whether, it's so interesting to see. Like, that's those were two items that the bond planning committee felt really strongly about, wanted them included in the bond. They purposely did not put them in Proposition A because they didn't want to put anything that could be seen as controversial in Proposition A. So that's why it stands alone as Proposition C, so folks can make a choice. What they didn't want is someone maybe that had a philosophical issue with ag barns, just didn't believe we should invest in that, to be looking at Proposition A and decide to vote against Proposition A based on ag barns. But maybe they did want to vote for new schools, but if you're going to force me to also vote for an ag barn, then I'll vote no. No, that's why they wanted to pull it separately, so that person could have a separate choice. which is, I think, choice is good, right? Like I think giving voters options is a great thing, and then each thing can sort of stand on its own merit.
And like the renovations to the
Yeah.
existing schools, like you mentioned, Knox.
Yeah.
What is the value in pouring back into these pre-existing,
Well,
buildings?
these are, like I said, these are assets we own, right? And so you never want to lose the ability to utilize an asset that you own. And if you can extend the life of a building, it's much cheaper than building a new building.
Yes.
So you take like the Woodlands High School, for example, it's on the major renovation list. And so it's 30 years old. So we'll do some renovations and we'll do these things. And then we're going to expect it to go another 30 years before we really need to do a big investment in it. But the investment that we're going to put into it this time is a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to build a new school. So like if you don't continuously reinvest in it and you just let it run down to the point where you can't use it anymore as a school, then you have to go build a new school, the cost would just be exponentially higher. So it's just about, you can really just think of it as like, how do we extend the life of the assets that we own?
Oh, yeah.
And if you take care of things like, we have
Which we do.
schools that are 50, 60 years old, but they look great. If you take care of them, you can get a lot of years use out of them.
And what does it do, for the students, the teachers, the families of the people that live in the area?
Yeah.
Like when we're able to get these upgrades
Yeah.
with facelifts.
It's pride, right?
Yes.
And part of it, when people shop for houses, they drive by a school. They don't necessarily know anything about the school. They just drive by the school. They see a new school, they think it's a great school. They see an old school, they immediately think, oh, it's not a good school, which is just not true. Knox Junior High is an older building. It's absolutely wonderful school. But from the curb appeal, it's not great, right? Compared to a new school.
Yes.
So that plays a role. But I also just think that kids take pride in their school.
Yes, they do.
And you see examples when maybe we open a new wing at a school, that when kids walk in and they go, wow, like they did this for us. Like we mattered enough for them to do this for us. Or when we open a new school, like this year, we opened a new junior high in the Caney Creek feeder, Moorhead Junior High. So it's a replacement building. So they went from an old small building to what I call a proper junior high school. And what you hear from like their staff is the behavior's better.
Yes.
The kids are locked in. Like it's pride, right? They're walking into this big, beautiful building every day and they're like, man, we matter. Like they built this for us. And it changes the way, so we say sometimes, like if you dress well, then you act better. I think sometimes you see that in schools. Like when the school looks really nice and it's well taken care of, I think kids act better. Yeah. And I think they come locked in better, ready to learn as well.
Raises the bar, for everyone, the students, the staff, just everyone that's involved.
Yeah.
I know that you're an extremely busy man. I know it's already getting a little bit late. So, I want to say, thank you for stopping by the show. Like I really enjoyed this conversation, digging down deep, Dr. Null. Ask you one more thing, we'll send you on your way. Like when this is all over, said and done, what do you want your legacy to be?
Man, for me, I hope that people will think back and think like that guy cared about me and he really wanted the best for me. And whether that's somebody that I was their teacher at one point, or I was their principal at one point and they were a student, or I was their principal and they were a teacher, or in any role that they are in right now as superintendent, is like that guy, he really wanted the best for me. And like, that's what I want it to be. Like, it's not about me.
Yeah.
Like I always want to measure my success on the success of those that I get to serve. And so I think that's the legacy, right? Is that we're not only great today, but I want us to be great when I'm gone.
Yes.
I want us to be better when I leave. Like I want to be investing in people in a way right now that when I leave, this place just gets stronger and keeps getting better. I think that's the right legacy for a leader, right? Is you just keep building great folks around you. And so I hope that's it, and
Well, if we're
that,
going by the numbers, like certainly we are,
yeah.
financially, academically,
I think so. I mean, it's all there, and the numbers are big, but I want my legacy to be bigger than the numbers.
of
I
course.
want it to be, I want to go back to that retirement party,
Oh.
like I want, and I don't care if people come to my retirement party and say those things, but when I'm done, I hope that people will look back and feel that same way. Like he cared about every one of us, and he lived that, and he showed it every day, regardless, man. Like it doesn't matter if I'm a kid that comes from $1 million house or I live in the poorest of situations. I don't care if I'm the best teacher or a rookie teacher. I don't care what my title is. Like that guy cared, and he was true and he was real. That's what I want it to be.
All right. Well, Dr. Null, thank you so very much for
Absolutely.
giving us a little bit of your time. Thank y'all for watching the Be Someone podcast. This is your host, Coach Chris Ortiz, and then we got Sharply Dressed, Dr. Null, man. Y'all take care, have a blessed day, and go out and be that someone.
Lights, camera, session. Use the flow, molasses. Blue the line, my fashion. Future brightening glasses. Applause from the masses.
This is the Be Someone podcast.